Hi, this is Joe Avati, and welcome to Church Street Studios, my Sydney studio where I record my podcast, A Serious Chat with a Comedian. Well, my guest today has been the finalist in the Entrepreneur of the Year Award. He's always listed in the BRW Young Rich Listers of Australia, and he's also a bit of a charmer. I call him the Lebanese George Clooney. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet him, Mr. Dorry Kordahi. Dorry, thanks for joining us today, mate. So before we delve into your life and how you got to be where you got, in a nutshell, what do you do now? So what's your core business and what are your ancillary businesses? Just so we get to know what you do now, and then we'll work our way to how you got there.
Yeah, well, so today I'm Managing Director of DK and Blue, so we're a marketing and merchandise business, so we directly import products. We do a lot of uniforms, a lot of big multinationals. Been in that for 20 years now. I'm a co-owner of a business called Swanky Socks, which is a startup that I invested in with the founder, which has been going fantastic. As well as I've had quite a few fashion companies over the years, and we've sold them out. So I look at a few acquisitions around the rag trade industry. Also co-owned the Illawarra Hawks, which I was the acting president for 2 years, and now I've stepped down. So
it's a basketball, which is a basketball team.
Yeah.
Don't forget this podcast goes around all over the world.
So yes, it's in the NBL, the National Basketball League. And look, I've done artist management in the past, as you would know, and I've done sports management, player management. So I like to throw myself into the deep end, but my core parts are the marketing and branding.
Yeah. And what sort of companies do you work for?
Oh mate, we do work with a lot of big, Microsoft, Samsung, Virgin, Wahlburgers, NBN, Carnival, Red Rooster, Reportos, you name it, Mercedes-Benz. So we do work with a lot of big multinationals, government contracts, online fulfillment, distribution, manufacturing, importing, creative as well. So so a fair bit.
Yeah. How many people do you employ?
I like to keep things tight, so we've got like around 15 staff.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's pretty good, isn't it?
Internally here across all the companies.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot more staff in Shanghai with the Asian base, so there's probably around 12 staff there as well.
Yeah. Is that where you produce
a lot of the stuff? Yeah, we get out of we get out of China. Yeah. We do have probably around 200 factories out of China, and I went to China at a very young age, and when China was a very closed market, which we can probably dive into that a little bit later as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely China. We do a lot of work out of India as well, and Vietnam, and other areas that we get the best products out of the best regions for it.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you were shortlisted the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, right?
I was finalist in that.
Finalist, yeah.
In that, yeah.
And also BRW. You're on the BRW list for
Fast Starts. Yeah. And Young Rich and Fast Starts and.
Yeah.
When you're young, you enter all these awards, you sort of see where you go with them all. But now, I don't even look at awards now. I think now, the older you get, the more mature you get, the more you sort of, your work is sort of your art, and that's sort of your regimen of what you do. But when you're young, you want to sort of, keep pushing yourself to sort of get these accolades and sort of tick a box and say, great, I've hit, the fast starts and all this sort of stuff. But I think now, when you mature a bit, you sort of, you let your work do the talking.
Yeah. Well, you've matured into a bit of a silver fox. How come you're not the GQ sexiest man in
I don't know, mate. You got to ask those guys for that. I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. So why I'm bringing all this up is because here you are, you've done this, but you failed school.
Yeah.
You failed your HSC. Well, HSC for those people who are overseas is the final 2 years of school.
Yep, definitely.
So how does that happen? Tell us about that.
Mate, for me, school, I was horrible, man. Like, I did not like school one bit.
Neither did I. I hated school too.
Yeah. I don't think I was bad at it. I just didn't study.
Yeah.
And I don't think I got it. And you'll find that a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll probably have the same sort of story or journey where they just didn't get school. So for me, going through school, I just kept going through because I wanted to play basketball because that's something that was my passion and what I loved doing. But yeah, I literally failed everything. I even failed religion in a Catholic school. I don't even know who fails religion. So,
what the hell did you say?
I've got no idea.
What did you write?
That just
you
shows
say
how
you're
bad.
An atheist. What did you do,
mate? My marks were average between 15 and 25% across all my subjects. The only one that I passed was business management. and I passed it. I got around 76%. And
Right.
once again, didn't study, so that's
Yeah.
probably the only thing that I passed.
Yeah. So you're naturally good at it.
So I think when you look at your past and what you were good
Yeah.
at, I think that stood out a mile away, and everything else was sort of miserably bad.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that is a thing that people should do. They should look at what they're good at, stop spreading yourself out, and focus just on that one good thing, and then let it grow. And obviously,
Definitely.
which it has for you. So let's go back to when you were a kid, though. Right?
Yep.
What do you remember about being a kid? What did you want to do? I mean, you wanted to be a basketball player, but were there moments when you were in your childhood that you can now look back to and go, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that I was like that. It
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me that I do now what I do, knowing the kid that I was. Tell us about that.
Look, I agree. Like for me, growing up, I was very independent,
Right.
and probably gave my parents a lot of grief, and that's something my parents remind me that I was a hard kid managing growing up.
Right.
I was very stubborn,
Right.
and I want to do things my way.
Yeah. Well, you still are.
Still are, exactly. So
Yeah.
I don't think your character changes, but I think your character's formed at a young age. So when I look at what I am today, I know what I want.
Yep.
I was very hungry, very ambitious.
Yep.
I was very independent.
Yep.
Didn't like to be told what to do or not to do it.
Yep.
I wanted to learn from experience.
Yeah.
And I was very stubborn, but stubborn in the right way, not stubborn in the wrong way. Like stubborn that if I fail at it, I'm going to keep going until I get it right. I'm not going to sort of find an easy way out of it. So, and that to me is all character building. And that comes down to, when people say entrepreneurism, how do you teach that? Are you born in it?
Yeah.
Are you born with it? Or can you teach it? I don't think you can teach it to a degree. And I don't know if I think it's in you.
Right.
So for me, those sort of characteristics, being a kid, I think they've translated to my adulthood as well.
Yeah. So you grew up in Sydney, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Lebanese background. Have you got other siblings? You got other siblings, right?
Yeah, we've got two brothers and a sister.
And are they also entrepreneurial? Do they have an entrepreneurial flair to them?
Look, I'm not going to discredit my brothers, but we're all very different.
Yeah.
So we're all. I wouldn't say we're all the same. I'm probably the most outgoing out of my brothers.
Yeah.
I love networking. I love getting out there, meeting people. So I'm always the one that's out there doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Everyone brings a different piece. We all work in the same business, which is great. So we all bring our different strengths with what we do. So, but I would say I'm probably the one that sort of stands out the most, being different from a different mindset to my brothers. And I've just always been hungry.
Yeah.
In what I do. So.
Yeah. Okay, so talk about you've finished school, you failed HSC. What happens then? Where does Dorry
Mate,
go?
So for me, it's my dad was a hairdresser in Punchbowl.
Right.
So out west.
And what part of Sydney did you grow up in? Did you grow up
Inner West, Croydon.
in Croydon? Okay.
Yeah, so around
Yeah.
this trap. So, but yeah, my dad did hairdressing for 30, 40 years, and they knew I was bad at school.
Yeah.
And the WOG mentality, the ethnics, they say, what, you take over the family business, you'll be right.
Yeah.
So my dad always had this path for me to take over the family business, the hairdressing salon.
Yeah.
And mate, I was 17 when I finished year 12, so I started quite young.
Yeah.
I was still 16, so I just sort of fell into hairdressing because that's what I was meant to do. That's the thing that you got to do, take over the family business. That's the way we were brought up, as you will probably know to a degree. That's the way. That's the way our and started hairdressing.
Yeah.
Did I love it? I'd say I hated it. I wasn't really passionate about it. So did a 4-year trade. Got my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
But then I knew deep down every day I was going out to Punch Bowl. I'm like, geez, what am I doing? I can't stand this. Don't like it.
Yeah.
I can't see myself doing this forever.
Yeah.
I was on $150 a week salary.
Yeah.
I'm like, geez, how am I going to get past?
Yeah.
Get out of this. So that was my first profession before I ended up getting an opportunity to work in the rag trade, which is what I'm doing now.
Right. Okay. So talk us through that.
Yeah. So my cousin came in and he said to my dad, he goes, look, my dad said to my cousin, can you come in and try to motivate Dorry and let him know this is his business, we can take over it. So my cousin, and I respected my cousin a lot, so he was good in business. I used to work with him when I was younger in his sports warehouse. So he came and tried to motivate me and give me, come out and think of ideas, and this is your salon, and what would you do with it? And he just knew that I wasn't motivated. And if you don't have a passion in what you do, you're not going to succeed. And that's very evident in anything that's out there at the moment with people in their careers. So he goes to my dad and goes, look, listen, he's not going to take on. You just got to understand that you're going to not have a son that's going to take over the business. So my cousin goes, I'll let him work with me in the rag trade, wholesale clothing, which was a corporate part of the business, and I'll see if I can get him into a new career path. Right. And literally the day that I started there, I was probably around 21 at the time. The first day I walked into the office, I went, you know what, this is my career, this is my future, and I love this, and I've been in it ever since.
Yeah, right.
So, at the start, my dad was very disappointed and upset that I didn't take over the business. But I think in hindsight, looking at what I do now, what I've done, I don't think he's complaining.
Yeah. Now you're big into your sports, right?
Yeah.
And I know, and we will talk about this now, how you leverage what you know about sports and the business of sport into your own business.
Yeah.
So first, let's find out how did you get into sport? So you wanted to play basketball. Did you play?
Yeah. So like for me, growing up, when I was young, I started playing basketball at school.
Yeah.
Played soccer and basketball. My dad said pick a sport because you can't do both. Mm-hmm. Lucky enough, I picked basketball. For me, I had a passion for it. I loved it.
And the height.
I'm not that tall, but I was quick. Yeah. But look, I started in playing basketball at a young age. I started excelling. I was good at it as well. So finished school, played state league. I was the youngest kid playing state league in New South Wales at that time. I was fortunate enough I went off and played professional basketball in Lebanon. Right. I was born in Lebanon, but I came here when I was 6 months.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I came when I was 6 months. So because I was born there, I was considered a citizen.
Yes.
Played there professionally for a little bit, and then ended up coming back and thinking to myself, am I going to retire playing basketball at 32? And if I'm going to retire at 32 playing basketball, am I going to have enough money in my pocket to actually retire? And I knew I wasn't going to do that. Mm-hmm. So at a very young age, at 23, I went at 22, 23, I had a bit of an epiphany. As much as I love playing a sport, and any kid that's playing a sport that's getting paid and you're on cover of magazines and you're in another country, it's hard to sort of think with a mature head. But I was fortunate enough that I said, you know what, if I want to be serious about making money and following a passion as well as basketball, I thought, let me get back and get back into this rag trade business. So I spent a couple of years doing it. Yeah. Then I went off and tried the professional sport. Yeah. But then I thought, am I going to retire at 32 on the income that I'm getting playing sport? And I knew that I wouldn't. Yeah. And I said to myself, do I really want to retire at 32, then start a career, which is what a lot of players go through now, and the transition's pretty hard. Mm-hmm. So I give myself credit that I did leave at a young age, come back, and actually start in the business. Went back to my family business, then started my own at 25. Right. But when people say, what do you take out of the sports? For me, it's the essence of, the training, the mindset, the visualization, building out your team. These are things that a team sport teaches you. Yeah. And considering because I had no degree in university, I didn't do well in school, I tried to leverage off things that I was good at and things that I knew. And when you look at playing a sport, you're looking about mindset, visualization, the game that's at hand, training. The more you train, the better you're going to become. What sort of team are we going to put on the basketball court? What team am I going to build in my office? Do I want 5 all-stars that are going to clash? Right. So for me, being the owner of the company, I thought, well, I have to be the guy that's going to lead the ship. Mm-hmm. I never believed that hire people better than you in my business. I thought I had to be the best. Right. I need to hire people below me. Right. Because if I'm going to build this business and build it on my theories and my values, I had to be the leader. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't do that, and I'm letting someone build my own business, then I wouldn't have a business if they decide to leave. Right. So I built a good supporting cast around me. I had my right-hand man, like you can say Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. I had a lady that started with me for 12 years, helped me build the business up. Yep. And then I had my support cast. Yep. And when you look at that, I flourished very quickly and very fast. And the buck stops with me. And if I want to be that market leader, well then it comes down to me how good I am as a player, as a business leader. How far can I take this team? How far can I take this business? And am I going to win? So that was my mindset when I started, and something that I constantly keep on doing now. Yeah, I mean there are other ways of doing it. Like, I mean that's an interesting way.
are you adverse to different styles of business management? Is that just the only way you've done it? I mean, like I sometimes think that you got to get people that are going to be with you, but who would one day have their own business. That one day they're going to fly the coop.
Yep.
But in that meantime, whilst they're getting to the point where they feel then comfortable that they can go away and do their own thing, you've got someone who's working for you who has what we had when we were growing up. You were focused, you were driven, you had that entrepreneurial flair. What do you think about that style?
Now, look, for me, I think in business and in sports and anything you do, you need to adapt.
Yep.
And if you don't adapt, then you fail. So when I was young, I was very, very hard and very structured. This is my way. It's the way I want it done because I believed in my method. But over years, you definitely adapt. A lot of our staff have been within our business, have been with us for between 8 to 15 years. So they've been with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a matter of, well, if you've had staff that have been with you for a very long time, then you must be doing something right.
That's right. Yeah.
So the structure of our business now is I don't instruct of what I want. Everyone gets what needs to be done. We all understand each other's roles and responsibilities, and we just do it. So the older you get, the more lax I've become with wanting things done in a certain way.
Yeah.
The most important thing for me is just that we deliver on time and we communicate with our customers. Because for me, service is paramount. And that's the only thing that I will keep on instilling in our staff is that respond, efficient service, and make them feel welcome. That is the only thing that I really focus on.
Yeah.
Everything else mechanically just works itself now.
Yeah.
Because they've all been in our business long enough now.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges along the way that really stood out to you that you learnt a lot from?
Look, I was very fortunate from a young age, starting DKM at the time in my parents' garage. I was a one-man show. I was a one-man show for the first 2 years. And that to me is my my university degree, prior working in my cousins and doing what I did on my own, which is why I'm very stubborn when I started, because I had run every part of this business, from accounts to production to importing to warehouse to logistics. I actually knew every part.
Yeah.
So when I hired people, I could teach them my way of what I wanted done.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, I've never really had any major hurdles because I think in my eyes, I planned right from the start. I had the right foundations. I didn't rush things. I didn't make any stupid decisions. I didn't try to grow too fast, too quick. I'd go through a cycle where I'd grow a lot in 1 year. Then I'd spend the next 6 months pulling back, readjusting my business, then pushing again.
Right.
So knock on wood, our business from day one has been self-funded, self-sufficient. I've had no adverse risks in the way we run this business, and it's been an easy, I won't say easy, but it's been a very smooth ride for the last, I would say, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which is very, very rare.
Yeah. For some budding entrepreneurs listening in or watching, when you say you peeled back, you'd move forward and you'd peeled back. When you peeled back, well, what were some of the kind of things that you looked at to change in the business?
I'd sort of look back at the business. Do we have the right staff? Are we, do I need more staff? We reassess, the operations, the systems. Whoever, does our office space, is it the right size now? Or if I'm going to go in the next couple of years, is this going to be do I need a bigger premises? So, for me, it's just not more about assessing the business, but more me assessing myself internally and mentally.
Right.
Because when I first left my parents' house and I rented out my first office, it was a 35 grand rent, and it was a lease. And I go, a lease? What's a lease? Like I worked in my parents' garage. I need, no pressure. Now I've got to commit. Wow, 3 years, like $90,000 or $105, and I've got to sign paperwork. I've never done that before.
Yeah.
So for me, that was very daunting because I've never done it. So, and that became my new norm. And then the next part becomes a new norm. And now, obviously where we were and where I am now, it's a completely different magnitude of what we're doing. But it's when I say hold back as well, it's not just complete the business, but it's more about my mindset and being comfortable in this new norm. And then when I'm comfortable with that new norm, I then go again because I've got that confidence and I understand that, this is my new base. Yeah. Then I work into the next one. Yeah. So a lot of it was adjusting, reviewing the business, but also the mindset.
Yeah. And how did you deal with all the pressures and the stresses of it all?
I've always been good with pressure.
Right.
I love I love pressure.
Yeah.
And I love, pressure situations.
Yeah.
And that some people are good at it, some people aren't.
Yeah.
But for me, I love throwing myself into the deep end.
Yeah.
And I love putting myself in uncomfortable situations because then that becomes your new norm, and then you build from there. But I haven't really had major issues with pressure. I actually enjoy pushing myself out of those comfort zones.
Yeah, some people do. Some people thrive on that, as you
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
You know, they really need to feel that so that they know. It's almost like if you don't have it, you're not doing the right thing.
It's like it's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
And for me, it's like I want that next challenge, or give me that next curveball. Give me I love that.
yeah,
When things are too perfect, I start to panic. I'm like, what's going to happen? This is too easy.
yeah, right.
So I love putting more things into the fire.
Yeah,
Because to me, it makes my brain tick more, and I love having an active mind.
Yeah.
Whether people call me nuts or not, but that's
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 you
just
don't
why
think
I'm
you
wired.
are.
No, that's the way I'm
That's the way
wired.
you are.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's very important, I think, because a lot of people need to realise that sometimes what they're doing, which is not necessarily what most people do, you're kind of working in a minority way, and you're actually not. You're whilst it might be very different, you're the one who's doing the right thing.
yeah.
You know, and so now you're one of the owners or co-owners of the Illawarra Hawks, right?
Yep.
Why did you get into that? And tell us about that sort of a lifestyle. Because is it a glamorous sort of an adventure? You know,
Definitely.
I can see you. I mean, you just look like the kind of guy that would be there and just enjoying it. What's that really like?
No, look,
Owning a sports team.
Yeah, look, I was fortunate enough that playing basketball was my backyard, my passion. I was a towel boy for the Sydney Kings, which was another team when I was younger. 32, I part owned that team, and I think I got you down to a game.
Yeah. I think
many years ago.
Yeah. You weren't a towel boy then, though.
No, I wasn't. I was 32, but I part owned the Kings back then for a year.
Yeah.
And that was my first dive into it. That experience when I was 32, owning a pro team, when the players that I played against at my younger age are still playing, and now I'm on the other end owning a club while they're still playing.
Yeah.
That was probably more of a surreal experience. I wasn't really actively involved in the business aspect. It was more shareholder, and you sort of sit back and you just sort of enjoy.
Yeah.
You come down courtside.
Yeah.
You look good and you sort of enjoy it, and you don't really look at the books.
Yeah.
Then I sat on the board for the NBL with Larry Kesselman, who's reinvented the whole league again. I think he's done a fantastic job in repositioning the NBL to where it is now.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity came up with a few of our partners to come in and acquire the Hawks. And this time round, I had a very active role with being the president of the club, where I was very hands-on, from corporate sponsorship to rolling out new assets, to working with the coach and building out a team, re-engaging the community. So it was a completely different mindset second time around because I was way more active within the business, being the president. Did that for 2 years, which was great. During a pandemic, which was bloody tough, and I'm like heart palpitations, saying, "What have I done?" But I think we did a great job. We had some great wins. When we took over the club, they were last. We took over the club the first 2 years in the pandemic. We finished third year one, second year two. We picked up some national sponsors that the club have never had before. And, we really built up the brand. So it was a really active role. It was very tiring because you're trying to manage all the other things. But it was a great experience. I actually enjoyed getting my hands and my teeth back into the sports, into a sport that I loved. So that it was fantastic. A lot of work, and it's not glamorous. You got 14 home games, which is great, but the business doesn't stop. It's an all year round business. So when the team's not playing in soft season, that's when the commercial team are out there really driving sales and really pumping. Because when you're in season, it's hard to generate new revenue. So the team's season is our off season, and vice versa. The commercial team's season is a player's off season. So, but look, it was a great experience. I'm not there day to day now, but overall it was challenging but exciting.
Now, okay, so you said you went from pretty much last to second or third place. Okay, I can understand, being involved in the business, in the president and so on, that you're managing the books, you're bringing in new sponsorship, marketing, all that kind of stuff. But what do you have to do with the players? I mean, if they were 16th last year, you know, all of a sudden they've gotten good.
Well,
what have you got to do with that?
Well,
I mean, is it the coach? I mean, tell us about that process.
Well, you definitely you got to hire the right coach, and I was fortunate enough that Brian Gorgon, who's the Australian national coach, and he's the greatest coach of all time in Australia. Bit of a background around Brian. He's coached in the league for 20 years. He's been in the finals for 20 years. He has not missed a playoff in 20 years. So when I was 32 and I was at the Kings, Brian Gorgon was the Sydney Kings coach. We built a very close relationship through that period. And when we left together at the Kings, when the Kings went into administration back then, and Gorge repeats his story in one of our press conferences that we had down in Wollongong. Walking out of the car park, 32-year-old kid saying to Gorge, "If I ever come back owning a club, you're going to be my coach." And then, and he remembers that very fondly. And then he had one season with the Dragons after the Kings won a title for the Dragons, literally within the year, and they were finishing last. And then he went to China for 12 years. And fortunate enough, I have an office in China, and I always go to China. And me and Brian, built up a very, very strong relationship over the 12 years. And I would say I'm one of his closest friends within the basketball and as well as personal life. So when we always joked about if we're ever going to come back, we'll come back to it together again. And every other club have been trying to bring him back. The Sydney Kings, I'm sure Melbourne United have tried. I'm sure Perth has tried, but he would never come back. And the moment we signed the Hawks and taken this opportunity, I rang up Gorge and go, "Mate, we made this pact 12 years ago that if I come back, you're going to come back with me. We're going to do it together." And true to his word, he took the role. So I came in and we made a mark by hiring the best coach in the country, the greatest coach of all time. They call him the GOAT. And in this instance, when you say hire people better than you, well, I'm not a coach, but we went out there and got the best coach. When you get the best person for that role, what happens after that? Players want to play for him. And then it makes your recruiting a whole lot easier. So in the past, Wollongong will be a position, will be a team, the Illawarra Hawks will be a team where you go there to a degree if you can't get a contract because just the way that was run. Right now we start having players saying we want to come and play for the team because we want to play. And if Brian, we see stability, we see structure, we've got the greatest coach. And then he became the Australian national coach again. So makes your recruiting a whole lot easier. And that's where we took it. We brought Brian in literally 3 days after signing the club. And that's how we sort of went from last to third year one and second year two.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad that you answered that question. I think that's an interesting thing that a lot of people would be wondering, how that process happens. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We'll be right back straight after this ad break. Hi, this is Joe Avati, and I am very proud to say that I am now one of the brand ambassadors for Elite Supplements. One of the supplements I take every day is resveratrol, an anti-aging supplement. You know how they say that 1 glass a day of wine is good for you? It's because it's got resveratrol in it. But you know how much wine you actually have to drink to get any benefit of it? 11 litres. Now, it doesn't take Einstein to figure out that if you're drinking 11 litres of wine a day, you ain't going to be around long enough to see any benefit. So make sure you get your supplements from Elite Supplements. Resveratrol worked for me. Look how young I look. And I'm 73. Hi everyone, I'd like to thank one of the sponsors of the podcast, St. Romeo, who provide great skincare products for men. I'm going to show you some of the products. St. Romeo Facial Cleanser, Rock and Roll Face Scrub. And if you had a rock and roll lifestyle, you're going to need a face scrub. This is their deep cleansing charcoal bar. How putting charcoal on your face cleans it, I have no idea, but it works. This is one of my favorites, the cucumber eye gel. Must be for vegans. And they've got heaps of stuff for your hair too. Shampoos, styling creams, and Stronghold for your hair. Obviously, I don't need any of these. I'd like to thank St. Romeo for being one of the sponsors for the Joe Avati podcast. Mentors. Who was your mentor? Did you have a mentor apart from your uncle, or do you mentor other entrepreneurs?
Look, for me, I get asked that question a lot. I don't have one mentor. I think everyone's a mentor. Like for me, I've always been a sponge.
You're right.
Especially when I was young, I was a sponge. When I was young, I used to just wanting to learn off everybody.
Yeah.
If I was a sales guy and I was hanging out with a state manager, I'm like, well, how do I get to that role?
Mm-hmm.
How do I earn what he's earning?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I just learned off everybody. One of the only books that I've read in my life, because I don't read books. I'm very bad at reading books.
But you've written three.
I have, and
Right, we'll talk about them next.
but I'm a poor reader. I can talk and make notes, but I can't read. But I was going out with my girlfriend at the time when I was 24 and complaining about life and complaining about just things that I wasn't happy with. And she goes, I want to get you a book and I want you to read this book. And I go, yeah, I'll read it. And she brought me Richard Branson, Losing My Virginity.
All right, yeah.
That book, and I actually read that book from start to end.
Yeah.
And I gravitated towards it because I related to it.
Yeah.
And just how he started with nothing and how he was sort of making up things, to the banks and calling from the phone booth about starting up his record company. And, it resonated a lot with me. I go, you know what? If this guy can do it, then I think I could do it.
Yeah.
And that gave me the motivation to get out there and do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So I get motivation from just about anyone and everyone that I can sort of get from. If you get bits and pieces from people, it all helps along the way.
Yeah. And what about in terms of entrepreneurs? Who do you look up to? Who's out there? Who do you know others other than yourself, of course? Who you enjoy spending time with, or learning from?
Look, for me, I've got a very big group of friends.
Yeah.
People that are younger than me, people that are a lot older than me.
Yeah.
I like people that actually have experienced business.
Yeah.
And experienced life.
Yeah.
For me, that's I love the maturity that they bring, and I've got friends that have sold companies for $200 million. I've got friends that are still running top firms that are CEOs and chair people.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just fantastic. I love hearing their stories and just having social discussions.
Yeah. Because
that to me it's refreshing as well. Like for me, spending time with people, it's all about having substance. And if friendships are based on substance and you got the same mindset, age is not an issue. Whether if you're a 30-year-old kid and you're running an unbelievable company and I can sit at a table with you and have a 3-hour dinner, then that's great.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just being around good business people, and it doesn't matter what you've done. It's about, do you have the same philosophies and values, not only in business but in personality and in respecting people, and that to me is very important.
Yeah. Now you mentioned China earlier. That when you first went to China, it was a closed market. What did you learn from that? It seems to be a point that's very pertinent to your trajectory and where you are today. What did you get from that?
Look, China for me was, whether you call it luck or whether you call it opportunities, seeing something different. When I was 22, I was roughly around 22, 23, prior to going off to playing overseas. I had an email come to me via a supplier, and I don't think he knows this to this day what he did, because it literally mapped out my whole career on one email.
Okay.
And I haven't spoken to the guy since. So if you read my book, you'll know what he did. So I've got to thank him for it.
Yeah.
So he sends me an email, and he gives me a call straight after. He goes, "Did you get the email? It was an Excel sheet." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Delete it. It's a virus. Do not open the email." And the guy is panicking. And I go, "Okay, I'll delete it." And he wouldn't get off the phone too. I go, "Look, yep, I've deleted it." No, I didn't delete it. So I opened the email, the Excel sheet, and it was literally all the cross pricings from the factory that they deal with out of Hong Kong that we buy off them. So I started calculating. I go, "Look, okay, well, he's got his margins there. I got to put my margins before I sell to my client." I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. There's a shitload of margins here."
Yeah.
So, and this is entrepreneurial. If someone got an email and they received it and they deleted it, great. Or if they look at it, okay, I know what it's selling for to us, but don't do anything with it. So for me, it's like, okay, well, let me email their office in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong was a trading hub.
Yeah.
No one went to China because China was a very closed market. Hong Kong was a business hub where they deal with all the factories. It's safe. They speak English.
Yeah.
They can secure your money if the factories stuff up, and they, you've got a safeguard. So I emailed the officer go, "Hi, we're a very big company in China, in Sydney.
Yeah.
And we weren't. We're like literally a small business.
Mm-hmm.
Will you guys supply us? Yes, Dorry, I'd love to supply you."
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting orders directly from the agent in Hong
Yeah.
Kong. So I take this catalog out that I had. So
Yeah.
we are the direct importer for this
Yeah.
catalog
Yeah.
because I had the direct source from the supplier, and that was my first taste of, okay, well, I can make a lot of money in this, and a lot of margins out of this. So that being said, I then wanted to go to Shanghai and go to China, and there was an agent that we had in China that I got put in touch with by my brother. He goes, "Oh, there's someone in China that he's wanting to be an agent, but no one touches China because you don't know what you're dealing with." So I go, "Stuff it, I'm going to go meet him." And at this time was when I started my company from my parents' garage. Then I wanted to go to China. This was like a couple of years later. So then I go to China, and one of my suppliers goes, "I'll take you to China with me." He's from Shanghai. He goes, "I'll show you around." And he was a good friend. So even though I buy stuff off him, he showed me around.
Yeah.
So I went and met the owner of this agent in Shanghai, and he had a young kid called Jimmy. And I was 20, by then I was probably around 20, 25. Jimmy would have been around 23. And I met him. And spent 4 or 5 days with him. And then I came back. And I emailed Jimmy. I go, "Jimmy, good catching up with you." I go, "Do you want to work for me?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "How about I give you the work, you find the factory, I'll give you a cut, and we work together as a partnership." Back then I had no customers.
Yeah.
I just started my company.
Yeah.
Jimmy has been like literally a few months in the business with this agent. And he goes, "Okay, let's do it." So we started together on a handshake. 20 years later, we're still partners on a handshake.
Yeah.
Which is very rare in China
Yeah.
that you have these relationships. And now, fast forward 20 years, we'll deal with over 200 factories directly ourselves. We deal with every multinational out of there. But back then, we had no factories.
Yeah.
And I just went off a handshake and trust that we'll get it right. And he would spend days in factories. We'll get on the train, sit there and wait for the products to be made.
Yeah.
And that's how I started. Out of an email sent to me by mistake, which opened up my thinking.
Yeah.
Well, how can I get to China? Now China's a very open market, as we know. Everyone's in China. You can go there via Alibaba, but you can go there it's an easy market. But for me, I've got a 20-year head start.
Yeah.
We've got infrastructure. We've got resources. We've got 10 to 15 years, 20 years of relationships with factories. So if anything goes wrong, we can get it replaced. We can push factories with record times.
Yeah.
And we've got a hub that we can centralize things where people would just go now and log online, find the factory and play a Russian roulette or and not know what you're going to get and be burnt. So very fortunate that at that age that I was able to do that.
Yeah.
If I'd started my business now, would I be where I am in 20 years' time? No, I wouldn't. And I say the same thing, would Branson be where he is? If he started his business now, Branson, would he be where he is in 40 years' time? He probably wouldn't, because the whole life of the industry and the business and what in the area you live in are very different. So I was very fortunate, and luck. What do you do with luck? Opportunities. What do you do with opportunities? Yeah. And I was fortunate that I was able to sort of, capitalize on those and see those opportunities.
Yeah. Now you said you had no customers. Okay, so you had the contact in China. You had no customers. What did you do to build them? And because you got some pretty high profile customers and pretty big customers there. How do you why are they with you?
For us, look, back then, how did I gain them?
Yeah.
Yellow Pages.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if people wouldn't know what Yellow Pages are now. But
Well, yeah.
back then,
old school people would.
Oh, yeah. So it was a yellow book, and you got
Yeah.
all the numbers. And I say I want to call gyms. I get to the gym section. And you start telemarketing.
Yeah.
It was a numbers game.
Right.
So I've always been. I understand the importance of cold calling,
Yes.
networking,
Yeah.
selling, being on the phone, being polite.
Yeah.
So very simple procedures. Like there was no Google paid ads or Google spend and paid advertising. It's get out there and the traditional way of selling.
Yeah.
And I think people have lost that.
Yeah.
Now, how do we maintain and keep clients? For me, everything's 100% service. Everything has been service in what we do. Product is product.
Yeah.
I've got 4,000 competitors do what I do. Mums and dads and everyone else. But so for us, product is not the end or be all. Price is always important, but it's service. It's how do I make your job easier and how to give you the best outcome. And where we've earned the best trust and respect with our customers is when something goes wrong, is when they test your business and your ability of what do you do to resolve this.
Yeah.
Because everyone can always win and always be happy when things are going great. But when things go wrong, how does your business handle situations? Do you pass the buck, you pass the blame, you ignore it, you try to hide it, or you run? Or, yep, we stuffed up. Leave it with me, I'm going to resolve it for you. No dramas. And you go, you know what? So I've had a few clients where we've had a major stuff up by a factory.
Yeah.
And these things happen. We are dealing
Yeah.
with man-made products.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got more trust with how we deal with that situation because they know, you know what, if anything goes wrong, they're going to support us just as good as when things go right. So everything that I do now, it's very service-driven. And that's the most important thing that I still push in my staff's head. Service, communicate. Because they're the things that are going to keep customers coming back.
Yeah.
Then the pricing scenario is out the door. They're not comparing, you're 15 cents dearer. People don't shop for that if you're getting what you're getting.
Yeah.
And that's why this business has grown so fast and grown to where it is today.
Yeah. How did you get to writing books? Tell us about that.
Yeah,
that process to getting, like, why? Why am I going to buy a book that you wrote?
For me, it's just storytelling.
Right.
And reading Branson's book and what inspired me to do what I did, I thought I had an appealing story to share. So the concepts of power to act and win big and win small was a biography / entrepreneurial book. So it's literally me talking about my story from being from birth to where I am now. Yeah. And so not only is it a life story, so you can't say, well, it's crap. Well, it's actually what I've done and where I'm here today because of this journey. But then at the end of every chapter, I'll talk about my theories in business and my how I did it and my mindset. So it's an entrepreneurial book as well as a biography. So it's a 2-in-1. And it's all about life experiences. So I'm not teaching you how to do it.
Yeah.
This is how I've done it.
Yeah.
Now, if you can take bits and pieces out of it, then it's going to help you. So my goal was, if I can do it, then I want to share my story with you and hoping this inspires you that, you know what, if you don't have a degree, you don't have anything behind you, you can still do it. But it comes down to hard work, commitment, and dedication. So for me, it's self-satisfying when I get calls and people emailing saying, your book has inspired me to take that first step. That's to me, it's not a money thing. It's more about, great, you've helped people along the way. And if you can inspire people, to me, that's refreshing. I love being able to inspire people to, to live their dreams or have a go at it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, what are your top tips for anyone starting out? What are the things that you've learnt that really stood out?
Yeah.
That you can talk about for our listeners.
Look, for me, it's not rocket science. Mm-hmm. My business plan was literally written on 3 scribbles of paper.
Yeah.
And it's in my book.
Yeah.
Very simple pace. It's understand what you're getting yourself into. People always talk about the successes and I think the blue skies. I've always been the opposite. I always look at the negatives. I always look at the potholes that are in front of you. So for me, work in the industry before you start, and don't go in blindly, because the more knowledge you have and having a bit of a work experience within your field, then you understand what you're getting yourself into. You get a lot of people open up cafes because it looks cool. Yeah, mums and I'll retire a cafe. It's cool. We make coffee, and I don't realize that you're up at 4:30 every friggin' morning. Yeah, if your barista doesn't turn up, you're up shit creek. Yeah. And then people get burnt for $500,000 because they realize they can't run a cafe. Yeah. So, it's become a barista. Work in a cafe. Mm-hmm. Wake up 5 o'clock every morning. Work the tables. Do you love doing this? Because if you're going to be your own owner, you're going to have to get your hands dirty at times. I was out with Paul Wahlberg, from Wahlburgers. Yeah. We're doing this stuff. And I spent 3 days with Paul. Yeah. And we had a good chat. I go, mate, how'd you get into chefing? He goes, mate, I've done it for like 30 plus years. It's my passion. I love it. Yeah. And he goes, I love being in the kitchen. I love cooking. And he started as a junior chef before he went off and grown this chain. But I even saw him last night. We had our launch at Circular Quay. Yeah. He's literally on the tables picking up the cups and the cutlery. Yeah. And he's, Paul Wahlberg, he's the face of the brand, and one of the most famous brands out there in the fast food from a family name. Yeah. And he's picking up stuff for the table. You get your hands dirty. So. Yeah.
Roll your sleeves up and just
do what you gotta do. Look, for me, another thing is keeping it simple. The KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. Don't complicate what you're trying to do, and understand what you're doing, and there's no rocket science behind starting up anything. It's just literally having an understanding. And everyone comes, I get so many people come up to me, I need to raise money. This is my business plan.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what do you need all this money for? Oh, because I need the X, Y, Z. And it's just a lot of it's just fluff. I go, guys,
Yeah.
you can start this right now
Yeah.
with literally half of what you're needing.
Yeah.
Why? And I break down, and that's because they're being trained, raise capital. But when you raise capital, well, then you got obligations to the investor.
Yeah.
If you can try to do it on your own, if you can, depending on what business you're getting into,
Yeah.
which is what I got into with no capital and no investors, well, then you're not under pressure of trying to return investments, because when you borrow money, you got to pay it back. Very simple. When you borrow money for a house, you got to pay it back.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to pay it back, you're not going to own it anymore.
Yeah.
So I always try to simplify it down. And how do I start small? Because everyone wants that big picture. Oh, in 5 years' time, I'm going to be worth 100 million. Like, Jesus Christ, get your wheels on first before you start putting those forecasts. Unless you're going to float it in 5 years' time and you've got a different mindset, and that's a different kettle of fish. But a lot of I'm talking from a place of a lot of startups which aren't in the tech space that might not require that. So, a lot of companies can do things without having to borrow a lot of money or rely on investors and put a nice, beautiful 60-page business plan.
Yeah.
Simplify it.
Yeah. How did social media change your business? For good, for bad, more competitors? What?
No, look, in our industry, you're finding some companies going online and just fully automating their business.
Yeah.
That's great. You're going to have customers that want to deal with you just being online and don't want an interaction with a customer. Yeah. We haven't, from a DK and Blue perspective, we haven't really used social media nor paid advertising. Everything's been for us has been organic growth, word of mouth, people seeing our products in the marketplace, people come to us still being telemarketing, the old methodology of telemarketing. So it hasn't really affected us. The online stuff where you got a couple of companies that are going out this complete online, place your order online, artwork, you don't speak to someone and you get the order. They're the clients that we don't want. Mm-hmm. Your big multinationals don't want that.
Yep.
They need service driven.
Yep.
And you're collaborating and you're partnering.
Yep.
You can't do that just by not speaking to someone.
Yep.
So we know what market we want and we know what sort of clients we want. So that for us, it hasn't really affected us from that perspective. Swanky Socks, definitely. Online has made it a whole lot easier.
Talk to us about that. You haven't really talked.
Yeah, so it looks Swanky Socks for me. I'm partnered up with Tom Lawrence, is my co-partner in the business. He literally started the business 3 years prior to me.
What are Swanky Socks? It's socks.
Swanky Socks. It's
it's for men, just for men.
Women.
Yep.
No show socks. It was literally a startup.
No show. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it was literally so it was literally a startup. So with Swanky, I was doing some work with Shivers Regal. Mm-hmm. Did some events and some ambassador stuff with them, and they had this whole program called Social Entrepreneurship, and the winner from Australia goes to New York for the national finals. And they had the national finals, and Tom was one of the 3 finalists for Australia. And it was around social entrepreneurship and what sort of empowering impact are you doing with social business. So Swanky Socks was every sock we sold online, we donated a pair to the poor,
right, or
to the needy.
Yeah.
So there's 3 pitches up on stage. I was in the crowd watching these pitches, and Tom came up, talked about his socks. I go, looks good. I had a few fashion brands at the time. I thought, with the menswear, socks could be another great addition. And then I reached out to Shiv. I said, can you put me in touch with Tom? And Tom came to me and I had a meeting. I said, mate, tell me more about your sock business. He goes, I've been running for 3 years. I go, great. And how long, what sort of stuff, what are you turning over? He goes, look, it was under 100,000. I go, what, per quarter, per year, per month? He goes, no, per year. I go, well, mate, how are you surviving? Because I'm doing my PT on the side. But, for me, it's a matter of, he goes, I'm getting to a point now where I'm just thinking about, can I keep doing this? So I went in there and acquired half the company, and I spent time with him restructuring it.
Yeah.
And I said, look, if we're going to do it together, you need to be committed, because as much as an idea might look good, and the product looked great on the website. I thought it was a great looking website, but it wasn't generating revenue. Yeah. And I said, look, mate, if we're going to do this together, I want to run this through with you the same way that I started my business. We're not going to go get money. You're going to get a salary when the business can pay you a salary. Yeah. And it's going to be a grind. So anything that I invest in, the founder has to be committed and invested into it. Because if they're not, and they don't buy in, to
Yeah, you
to
got to
a
have some
partner.
skin in the game, right? Yeah.
Well, if they don't come in and buy in that, now I've got a partner, then it ain't going to work because it's got to be. They've got to buy in that. I now need to start delivering.
Yeah.
As a founder, but I need to buy in that. It's going to be hard work, and I give Tom a lot of credit because he did put in the heart, he did put in the commitment, the time, the work, and we grew this business. Now we are the market leader in socks in Australia. We're one of the biggest sock companies in Australia within a 4-year period.
Yeah, right.
And we do work with every big multinational. And where social media's come in play with that is that now we've expanded in the UK and the US, and that's all on the back of paid advertising and search engine optimization. So without having the growth of technology, those channels would have been a lot harder to take. Now we've actually employed a person in the UK because we're getting so much business in the UK, and Tom can't be working 24 hours around the clock because of the time difference. But Swanky Socks now is one of the market leaders in socks, retail and corporate B2B. Literally every big multinational are wearing our socks for a campaign, retail or corporate. And the company now turns over millions of dollars from a startup.
Yeah. I actually have a few of those. So you gave me some. I think when it started.
Well, now we've improved it because our cottons. Now everything we're doing is based on merino wool and bamboo cotton. So we've actually increased the quality of our socks, and we've pitched it to a higher level of quality. And even our compression sports socks are made out of merino wool.
Right.
So everything we've gone to that high end scale of socks. So and that's part of evolving your business. Is where you start doesn't always means where you're going to finish. So you always want to evolve your business, your brand. Your content, your creative, your product, your packaging. If you don't evolve, another prime example. You look at companies like Red Rooster; they've really evolved their brand. Yeah. One of our clients that we deal with, we've launched their retail store, selling corporate retail merchandise products. And if you look at the store now, it's very, very urban cool. It's very young centric. It's and look at their brand. It's where they're heading. So you have to adapt with times, and that's important. So everything that we do as a business is adapting with what the world's telling you. Yeah. And if you're going to ignore what the world's telling you, and you stay in your own little hole, we're not going to change. Well, then you're going to be a dinosaur. Yeah. And that happens to companies. It does happen.
Yeah. People don't realize how much you really have to, do that. I mean, I know with my career, I did well at the beginning. Have a bit of a rockstar lifestyle, took it easy, didn't really worry, didn't write so much, sort of rested on my laurels. And now, it's, in the last 5-6 years, things really changed.
Yeah.
And you see it, and you really see it when you put a lot more effort into
it. Definitely. Yeah. And you have to.
Yeah. Now, one thing I admire about you, I mean, we've been out many times, you've always kept you cool, you were never out of control, you want to have a drink, you never, sort of seen you, get, I really admire that about you, what do you do? I mean, you do a lot of things. You're a family man, you're a dad. What do you do in your off time?
Mate, for me, it's just, I love being by the water, and I'm blessed that, I live where I live, and you've been to my place. So I just mellow at home. Yeah. Just by the water, put on my music. Yeah. And just relax. Yeah. I think the older I get, the more mellow I've become.
Of course you do. Yeah.
But look, for me, I've always mindset and the way you project yourself in public, I think it's important because we are all brands. Yeah. Everyone's a brand. Yeah. Everyone's a product. When you're out there and you're trying to meet a girl at a bar, you're selling yourself. Yeah. You're out on stage.
You don't have to do anything, mate.
No, we all do.
No. You just have to stand in the
Give her the wink.
Yeah.
But we're all, so for me, it's your personal reputation is important. Yeah. Because people want to deal with respected people, and I'd give myself a lot of credit. I've never tried drugs, never done drugs. I've never gone down that path, and I've been around it as a kid, but I've never been. And that comes down to me, it's family values and the way you've been brought up, and the discipline as a young kid, and that old mentality of dad gives that death stare as you do in your shows. You're going to get that. But to me, it's it's something that I've always been very conscious of as a person, and something that I've been very proud of is that just lead by example. Yeah. Because doing that, people are going to want to work with you, spend time with you for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. So, and downtime, mate, it's just really just literally do nothing. Yeah. Because I don't get much time to do nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and the last question I have, which I ask everyone, is what do you do every day? What's a ritual? What is a routine that you have every day that keeps you motivated, that keeps you going? You know, you look pretty fit. I know you went. Were you a vegan? Did you go
No,
vegan?
no.
Did you?
I just literally watched what I ate. Like for me,
Yeah, right. Because you did. I mean, you're a pretty slim guy. You're pretty fit. But there was a stage there.
yeah, in my 30s.
Yeah, but about even 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
You did something. What did you do?
I started training
Yeah,
again.
right. Okay.
So for me, when you're playing all your life and you're
Yeah.
training 5-6 days a week and you're
Yeah.
running, no matter what you eat, you're
Yeah.
just going to burn it off.
Yeah.
And then when you stop playing the sport
Mm.
and you keep eating the same food
Yeah.
and you stop your training,
Yeah. Well,
like
of course.
year by year, you slowly
Yeah.
put that on, and that's something that happened to me. I put on like 25 kilos.
Yeah. Right.
But when you put on a couple of kilos every year,
Yeah.
you just don't realize.
You don't. That's right.
And then
Yeah.
I was one day out on the water with a friend of mine. She goes, "Dorry, you're never this big before. You've always been slim. I'm gonna get my trainer."
Yeah.
And I said, "You know what? Get the trainer on."
Yeah.
And I went back to my old training 2-3 days a week, and it took me a good year, and then the weight started coming off. So for me, it was just changing my food intake. So I wouldn't call it diet.
Yeah.
It's just more around just watching what you eat,
Yeah.
working a bit more, and then sort of slowly just sort of readjust your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, that was I did have the mid 30s is where I sort of work, dinners, out,
Yeah.
social,
Yeah.
eat,
Yeah.
do nothing,
Yeah.
sleep, and yeah, it's eventually going to catch up to you.
Yeah. Except for your famous New Year's Eve parties.
Mate, they are very famous. I'm having a quiet one this year.
Are you?
I'm going to go quiet.
Yeah, I'm in Melbourne this year. I was going to say, do you
should've
mind
come.
if I...
You came to one of them, didn't you?
Of course I
When was
did.
it, like 3 years ago or 4 years
Oh,
ago?
yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the one
yeah.
in Birchgrave. You came on in
Yes,
Birchgrave.
that's right. Yeah.
But you lose 2 years because the 2 years of
Oh,
pandemic, you
yeah.
just wiped that out.
Actually, so it might have even been more. It probably would have been
probably would have
6. Yeah. 5
Man,
or
that's
6.
how far it goes. Like 2 years,
know.
you wipe that out,
Yeah.
and then you work back from that because the 2 years you hardly saw anyone for
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Dorry,
that's quite interesting.
Thank you very much, mate. It's been
Thanks,
a pleasure to chatting. And it was great because I learned some things that I didn't know about. I didn't know you were a hairdresser. not that you could do much with me, but it's been great. And, mate, I'm very proud of you. Very, very proud to call you a mate. You know, I've just seen you grow and grow and grow. And you know what? You're a top guy and you're a decent human being. Thanks very much for
Thanks,
being here.
John. Mate, really appreciate it. And thanks for your time today. And likewise, mate. It's great to see you grow. And friendship's always good and great to see this one continue on,
Yeah,
mate.
excellent. Thank you very much.
Cheers.